Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, bon après-midi. I do want to start by saying that I have wonderful news. The wonderful news is that we always save the best for last. And I think that's going to apply to the panels and to the speakers here, and of course also to the audience, you brave souls who have waited until the very end and are actually here. So thank you for being here. My name is Philippe Dunsky. I'm the founder and president of a firm called Dunsky Energy and Climate Advisors. We're based here in Montreal, across Canada, and we support our clients throughout the energy transition and the challenges that they have through the energy transition, all aspects of it. We're here, of course, to talk about data centers. Thankfully, this is not an issue that I need to impress upon anyone the importance of. We all understand the extraordinary growth in the need for data centers. We all understand how the extraordinary growth in energy required for the data centers to operate. They are essential to unleash the AI revolution. They are essential for many of our nations to protect our data sovereignty in a world where so much of this is controlled by so few. But they are also putting extraordinary pressure on our electricity grids, of course, on our communities, whether it's for reasons about water or land or noise or costs, and of course, extraordinary pressure on broad public policy goals, especially as they relate to the need to generate enough power for all of these data centers, which is why I'm thrilled to be here talking about energy efficiency. Because, of course, we all know that behind every risk and every threat is an opportunity, and this is very true for data centers as well. Data centers can be an enormous challenge for everyone. Data centers can be a big part of the solution as well, if they are designed properly, if they are thought of in advance and deliberately. We can do this in a way that right-sizes the compute. We can do it in a way that designs for maximum energy efficiency and water efficiency and time and space efficiency. We can operate them similarly in ways that maximize the value that we get for the energy and water that go in. And of course, we can do it all in a way, not necessarily do, but can do it in a way that integrates with our grids in ways that, instead of taking away from the grid, instead of adding pressure to the grid, provides value to the grids, provides resiliency, provides flexibility. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have an extraordinary set of speakers. I'm just going to tell you very quickly the run of show here. We're going to begin with Mr. Wan Shanshung, and I'm sorry if I've butchered the name. Mr. Wang will come and speak to us about how China is addressing data centers. Mr. Wang is the Director General for the Department of Resource Conservation and Environmental Protection at China's National Development and Reform Commission. I'm not going to read bios. I'm not going to tell you his lengthy story, but I will say this. Mr. Wang has been at the heart of so much of what China has been doing to get emissions under control and get to the point today where we've actually plateaued emissions in the great country of China. So we're going to start with Mr. Wang. We will continue with a similar talk by, and again, my apologies in advance if I butcher, Mechtilde Verster-Fu, yes? She tells me close enough. Mechthild is the Deputy Director General of Energy at the European
Mechthild
Commission.
is the
She's also an economist by training, and she is responsible for coordinating the just and green energy transition and has been since 2021. We're going to start with the two of them. We're then going to open up into two distinct panels that I will have the pleasure of moderating. An initial panel that I will call briefly about the how do we do this, and a second one about how do we measure this. So without further ado, can I ask Mr. Wang to please come join us?
非常感谢大家下午好，我是来自中国国家发展改革委的王善成，非常高兴参加本次研讨会，与大家交流推动算力设施节能降碳的经验做法，共同探讨加快这一重要领域绿色转型的有效路径。
Good afternoon, distinguished guests and friends. I'm Wang Shancheng from China's NDRC. It's my pleasure to be here, and I look forward to exchanging practice on energy conservation and emission reduction in computing infrastructure and exploring effective solutions in joint efforts.
当前数字技术加速更新迭代，算力设施已成为全球经济发展的重要支撑，也是能源消耗增长最快的领域之一。据国际能源署测算，2025年全球数据中心耗电量近5000亿千瓦时，约占全球用能比重的1.5%。2030年预计将实现翻番，这将为全球能源绿色低碳转型和应对气候变化带来巨大挑战。中国在推动碳达峰、碳中和的进程中，始终高度关注算力设施绿色低碳发展问题，开展了大量工作。
Digital tech is evolving at lightning speed. Computing infrastructure is now a key pillar of the global economy, yet it is also one of the fastest growing in energy conservation, in energy use. According to the IEA, global data centers consume nearly 500 billion kilowatt hours in 2025, accounting for 1.5% of the total. This figure is expected to double by 2030, posing a massive challenge to our global green transition. In advancing our dual carbon commitments, China has always prioritized the green development of computing infrastructure, taking extensive actions to drive this transition.
第一，优化规划布局，我们深入实施东数西算工程，加强算力设施建设统筹布局，支持大型、超大型算力设施向国家枢纽集聚发展，推动效益差、能耗高的老旧小散算力设施整合升级改造，促进算力设施向集约化、规模化、高效率转变。截至2025年底，中国在用算力设施机架数超过1373万标准机架，智能算力规模已达到159万，其中国家枢纽智能算力规模占比超过80%。
First, optimizing spatial plan, we have advanced the East Data West Computing Project, strengthening coordinated planning for computing infrastructure. We support large and mega-scale facilities to cluster in national hubs. We're upgrading or phasing out outdated, inefficient, and high-energy consuming ones. This drives a shift toward greater intensity, scale, and efficiency. By late 2025, China had over 13 million standard server racks, and our intelligent computing scale has reached 1.59 million PFLOPS. National hubs now account for over 80% of this total.
第二，强化节能管理，我们持续完善算力设施、服务器、通信基站等强制性节能标准，充分发挥标准约束倒逼作用。存量方面，深入实施节能降碳改造，因地制宜推广节能技术装备，推动设备选型、制冷架构、机柜功率密度、系统智能运行策略等优化升级，加强余热资源回收利用。增量方面，严格新建算力设施节能审查，加强电能利用效率等指标准入管理，特别是要求国家枢纽新建算力设施的电能利用效率不得高于1.2，积极支持发展绿色低碳、集约循环的算力设施。截至25年底，中国超大型算力设施平均电能利用效率已降至1.34。
The second, advancing energy saving management, we have established mandatory efficiency standards for data centers, servers, storage, base stations, and cooling systems. For existing projects, we are advancing deep energy saving upgrades and promoting tailored green technologies. Key optimizations include equipment, cooling systems, power density, and smart operations, alongside better waste heat recovery. For incremental projects, we enforce energy reviews with strict PUE thresholds for market access. Notably, new facilities in national hubs must maintain a PUE of no more than 1.2. We also actively support green, efficient, and circular development. By the end of the last year, the average PUE of China's mega-scale computing facilities dropped to 1.33.
第三，加强绿电应用。我们统筹算力电力一体化布局和智能调度，依托数字化技术、智能算法、信息网络等手段，推动算力设施和电力系统深度融合，积极探索推进绿电直供、多元互补、联合互动等新模式，持续提高绿色电力对算力的支撑能力。目前，在中国国家枢纽新建的算力设施，绿电消费比例都要求超过80%。中国内蒙古、青海等清洁能源富集地区都正在积极开展算电协同先行先试。
The last, boosting green power use, we are promoting integrated planning and smart scheduling for computing and power. Driven by digital technology and AI, we are deeply integrating computing facilities with power grids. By exploring new models like direct green power supply and source load interaction, we continue to boost green energy support for computing. Currently, our computing facilities in national hubs are required to use over 80% green power. Regions rich in clean energy, such as Inner Mongolia and Qinghai, are actively pioneering computing power coordination. These are the practices and achievements China has made in promoting the green and low-carbon development of computing infrastructure.
以上是中国近年来推动算力设施绿色低碳发展的一些经验做法和工作成效。后续我们将持续加大力度，坚定不移推进相关工作。接下来，各位嘉宾还将围绕这一主题进行深入研讨交流。我们也希望通过参加本次研讨会，学习借鉴其他国家的成功经验和有效做法，进一步丰富政策工具箱，努力为加强全球能效治理、积极应对气候变化做出更大贡献。我就分享这么多，谢谢大家。
Moving forward, we will step up our efforts and remain steadfast in advancing this vital work. Additionally, experts here today will engage in in-depth discussions on this theme. We hope to learn from the successful practices and further enrich our policy toolkit. Together, we'll make greater contributions to global energy efficiency governance and tackling climate change. This concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wang. Thank you for your remarks and of course, for everything that you're doing in China to advance the efficiency here. The one thing I retained here is you've achieved now 1.33 PUE. And for those of you who are going to be sticking around until the second panel, we'll be talking a lot more about PUE across the globe. Allow me to invite now Mechtilde Verstoffer, please.
Thank you very much. And it was very interesting, Mr. Wang, to listen to what's happening in China. And I will try to explain a little bit how we do in Europe. And then is, of course, the interesting panel where you can go deeper. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak about the topic, which is of huge importance for Europe as well, both from an economic, from an energy, and of course from a digital point of view. And it's good that we merge these different sectors. We speak about a twin transition, digital and clean energy transition. And of course, data centers in that context have become a major strategic infrastructure. And as we are accelerating the digital transformation, the question is no longer whether data centers will grow, but how that growth aligns with our broader policy objectives. And I will start a little bit like Philip did in his short introductory remarks with the benefits, because I think it's important to underline that the expansion of data centers, we see it as clear opportunities. It can strengthen our digital sovereignty, boost the competitiveness, and play a leading role in artificial intelligence and digital innovation. So we see that data center growth is not a market trend, but it's a strategic choice. So we are committed at the EU to triple our data center capacity from now in the next 5 to 7 years. So we have said by 2030, we want to have really nearly triple, 2.5 to 3 times more. IEA have that underlined and as well. That would cover just our own digital needs by assets in our territory. When I look at the energy sector, data centers have, of course, an essential role to play. If we want to optimize our heating and cooling in the homes, charge electric vehicles at the right time, modernize the way we plan and operate our grids, I heard that before, and manage the complexity of a decentralized renewables-based energy system, digital technologies empowered by AI and supported by data centers are already now providing their value. We need to increase the efficiency, thus cutting emissions and reducing costs across the entire energy system. So our triangle of decarbonization, affordability, and security plays in there as well. So we want to fast-track the deployment of AI, but we are also managing, and I will highlight that in a second comment, the challenges, the risk which are there. And we have come out from the Commission side earlier this month, early June, with a strategic roadmap for digitalization and AI in the energy sector. So we see the opportunities, AI and data center for the energy sector, but also, of course, these data centers need a lot of energy. And that comes with some challenges. If I look at the figures right now on energy consumption, the most recent estimates is that data centers account for around 2 to 2.5% of EU total electricity. That is, of course, not much, but it varies across our EU member states. Ireland, which is leading on data center and more generally also on tech, a lot of tech companies are in Ireland. It's already 20% of their electricity consumption. We have 4 cities in Europe, Frankfurt, Paris, Amsterdam, and Dublin, which are the hubs for data centers right now. And our wish is, of course, from an EU point of view, that in all our 27 EU member states, these opportunities are met with the challenges and the data center growth. So we have some leading countries where it's already up to 20% of electricity demand, and this is only increasing if we look at 2030. Another challenge, we heard it, it's grid congestion in areas where data centers tend to cluster. There are strains on energy and water resources and concerns that new data center drive up energy prices. And that is a concern we see in some of our member states more than in others. So there's already a debate, do we need that many data centers? As I said, we see the potential, the opportunities, there's no other way, but we need to manage also the energy side of it. And also, of course, the timing matters. We heard from China how they go the way ahead. US is another leading data center country or region. So Europe needs to catch up and needs to accelerate. So what do we do in order to manage these challenges I just outlined? And I have 3 quick points on that, and I'm sure you will go deeper into that. So first of all, it's about information and transparency. Good policy starts with good data. IEA is already saying that, and they do very good work on that. We have, in the Commission, introduced in 2024 the European database on data centers and reporting schemes so that we can collect information and key performance indicator on the sustainability of data center. And I will come back to that sustainability of data center. After 2 years of reporting, we have some concrete data on the performance of data centers in the EU. We have taken first steps towards even more transparency in the sector, and we have established a community of interest on the sustainability, and we have learned that our tools must remain agile to keep pace because everything is evolving quickly. Secondly, we want to promote the best available technologies and best performing facilities. 1 year ago at the IEA Global Energy Efficiency Conference, which we co-hosted in Brussels with the Commission, my Commissioner Dan Jurgensen announced the Data Center Energy Efficiency Package as part of that strategic roadmap which we adopted earlier this month. So a central element where we are still working on, and it should come out in a couple of weeks, is a rating scheme for data centers. And that will be complemented by introducing a label. So we have in Europe labels for a lot of appliances, washing machine, dishwashers, on energy efficiency with A, B, C, D, E. We want a label on sustainability with a strong focus on energy efficiency and assess the sustainability performance of data center. That is basically to inform and increase transparency, make better policy making by getting that information, and of course, overall, support a more sustainable procurement of digital assets and services across Europe. And looking ahead, after that label, which we are still internally and with our member states discussing, but should come out soon, we also want and plan to go one step ahead and introduce a possible minimum performance standards for data centers in the EU. It shouldn't be complicated, it should not add any admin burden, but increase transparency on the sustainability. So to match these challenges, as I said, and the benefits. And we also then want that all new or retrofitted data centers meet a certain minimum performance level of some criteria with a focus on energy efficiency, but also water use and waste heat reuse, which is something we want to promote further. And the idea is, if we come up at EU level, we avoid a fragmentation between our different EU member states. As I mentioned in the beginning, some are faster ahead and some others. My third point on that, it only works with collaboration and dialogue. First of all, between the digital and energy industries, regulators, grid operators, and planning authorities. We have organized a few of them, and it's really important that those who plan a data center, before they decide on the location, talk to everyone, the grids connector, and the regulators. So it's going hand in hand, and not then plan a data center and then worry about the grid connector. It should go hand in hand, and we are there to facilitate that. And we have a couple of pilot projects on that, tripartite contracts, where we have different associations working together. Let me conclude that if our action shows that the EU's commitment to ensure that the data center growth in Europe is sustainable, efficient, and aligned with our clean energy transition. And of course, we want to foster not only European collaboration, but also international collaboration. And of course, today is the chance to do that. And I would like to thank you for your attention, and very much looking forward to the panelists to go deeper in some of those aspects. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Mechtilde. I would like to invite the first panel to come up and join me now. Carlos Lopez, Tam Wagner, Lisa Treisen, and Axel Brie. Please join me on stage. We'll go sit down and we'll have a little conversation. Good.
Hi again.
Well, there we go.
Oh,
All right.
far away.
Okay. So thank you so much for joining me here for this conversation. We just heard the remarks and essentially, you know, what China is doing, what the EU is doing and is looking to do going forward. One of the things I was very interested in what Mechtilde was just explaining about the three-step approach that the European Commission is taking. And just to repeat it very quickly, right? You know, the transparency side, the best-in-class facilities side, and then minimum standards themselves. I'm going to leave aside the transparency piece for a moment because we're going to have a separate panel that talks about the metrics. But let me jump into the facilities side of this and best-in-class approaches here. I'm going to turn to you, Lisa. And I'm sorry, I haven't introduced anyone here. So let me do that very, very briefly. Again, no long bios, but Carlos Lopez, to my immediate left, to your immediate right, is the Senior Policy Advisor at the Swedish Energy Agency. Tam Wagner, immediately past. Tam is the Senior Director for Demand-Side Management at Ontario's Independent Electricity System Operator. So we have we have the government perspective, we have a system operator perspective. Lisa Treisen is the head of marketing and communications for the Americas for Danfoss. I believe you're based in Pennsylvania. Is that?
I live in Pennsylvania. But
you live
we have
all right,
offices all
fantastic.
over.
And Axel Brie is the Deputy Director General of Germany's Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. So thank you so much for joining me for this, and apologies for the skipped intros. All right, so I am gonna turn it over to Lisa. Lisa, when we think of best-in-class equipment, like for many people, data centers is just an opaque, you know, box somewhere that has to run to serve the AI, to serve our future AI overlords, right? There's a radical difference in technology, in best-in-class versus some of the worst technology stuff on data centers. Can you walk us through some of that? I'm thinking in particular the cooling.
Yeah, so as I think everyone probably knows, cooling is about 30% of the load of a data center, so it's absolutely critical. And traditional cooling, what we call air-cooled systems, really reached sort of the max limit in terms of energy efficiency and water use. So with newer technologies, for example, direct-to-chip liquid cooling and closed-loop systems, you remove the heat closer to the source where it's generated. So it's much more efficient. It's about 15% more efficient than like an air-cooled system. And you also are able to reuse the water. And in addition, you also have better access to heat recovery, which is absolutely going to be vital in having this grid resiliency. We need to make sure that we're reusing the heat through a heat recovery unit and heat pumps to take that to offset that heat into a district heating network, into buildings, or in other industrial factors. Like for example, in the US, we don't have district heating, but you can locate a data center very close to an industrial facility or buildings or campuses or really anything that's going to use heat. So that's really the mark and where we have to make sure that the technology is there. We just need to make sure we are using the right policy inducements to incentivize that.
So, and that's a fantastic point at the end there, the policy levers that we've got. I'm actually going to look over to Axel here on this side. You know, on the government side, because obviously you're with the ministry in Germany. What types of policy actions can we be doing? I'm thinking in particular about this heat recovery, the heat recovery side of the equation. You know, what types of policies is Germany looking at to incentivize or encourage that heat recovery?
Yes, I think Mechtilde described very well the situation between challenges and opportunities for for data center, and that's the task of the regulator of how to set a good framework on the one hand to have not a competitive disadvantage for the data center, but also to make sure they are energy efficient and are sustainable in a way. So as we heard some numbers already. I think Germany is a little bit in between, so we are not at 20% of electricity consumption as in Ireland, but we have 4%, so that's a bit more than the EU average. That's the electricity consumption of the two biggest cities of Berlin and Hamburg combined. So we saw early on the need to regulate, and we have regulated in 2023, so that's 3 years ago, already some standards for data centers. This is on the one hand what Mechthild also said, it's efficiency standards, also what Mr. Shang said for China. So we have these efficiency standards already in law for existing, but also for new data center, up to from a certain size of the data center. Also, with regard to your question on waste heat, we have a waste heat register for all kind of appliances, but this also applies to data centers. So they have to register at this platform in order to know for the municipalities whether they can, count on the data center and how to connect them best to the waste grid. And the third point is also important is when we talk about electricity, it's, there's a little bit, you can say, good and bad electricity, whether it's coming from coal plants, for example, in Germany, or from renewables. And so we have this requirement that by now 50% of the electricity must come from renewable energy. And this goes up to 100% by 2030.
And so I want to go just a little bit further on the heat side. So you said that there's a registry, right? And so a data center developer has to sign up in a registry so that the municipality is aware of whether there's a heat recovery opportunity. Is that pretty much where the European approach is likely to stop, or are you thinking of going a little further?
That's what you have to ask Mechthild maybe, but I think we can go further. You can think about obligation to be connected to the waste heat grid. But as I said, I mean, you always have to take into account competitive criteria. And so it's difficult, and I think at the moment we a little bit abstain from really prescribing data center where exactly they have to locate. And of course, you don't have waste heat grids everywhere in Europe or in Germany.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna sound a little bit like like I'm flogging the horse on the heat side. I just want to get through that a little bit, and we'll get into some of the other aspects of data centers. But I'm going to turn to Carlos on this very question. Of course, Carlos, you're with the Swedish Energy Agency. Sweden, very much like Germany, has a lot of district heating, very much common to the country's heating architecture. What is Sweden doing on the heat recovery side with data centers?
Well, of course, it's easier for Sweden in principle to have because there are lots of district heating networks. So if it's possible to connect those with the district heating network, then it's much easier than there is a direct use for it. And that's a preoccupation that we have for when establishing data centers, yes. But as Axel said, it's difficult to prescribe exactly where it has to be installed. Even if there are ways of making an obligation on studying if there is at least study the possibilities of having a use for it.
Fair point. Here in Canada, of course, different story, slightly different story. District heating is a lot less prevalent. Tam, you run DSM in the largest province in this country. How do you view the opportunities to ensure that new data centers, I say new, I mean it could be existing or new, really maximize or at least optimize their energy efficiency in terms of the facilities themselves?
So maybe I can take a step back and just speak to a bit about what the IESO's accountabilities are. So as Philippe mentioned, we are the system operator for the province of Ontario in Canada. So it's a province just west of the province of Quebec that we're in today. We've got about 16 million, our population is about 16 million, and we're a summer peaking jurisdiction. So we have a lot of cooling loads in the province, and our peak demand was about roughly 27,000 megawatts. So for us, part of our accountability as a system operator is about maintaining the minute-to-minute, second-to-second reliability of the electricity grid in Ontario. We also administer a wholesale electricity market, and this is where we really lean into the demand flexibility opportunities when it comes to data centers. The other piece that I would note about our area of accountability is we also plan for the electricity grid and the needs in the province of Ontario. We look 20 years out. So every year we do a planning outlook. And we are forecasting that the electricity demand in Ontario to grow 65% by 2050. And some of that is data center load, but it also we don't actually fully account for all the data centers that have expressed interest in connecting in Ontario. So in our queue for connection right now is about 6,000 megawatts of load from data centers, and up to, until 2040, there's another about 15,000 megawatts that have expressed an interest in locating in Ontario. So from what we've heard on this panel here in Ontario, we're very much looking at first energy efficiency opportunities and working with the data centers to understand where those may be. To Lisa's point with regards to cooling is really looking at it from a building's perspective, understanding what the minimum cooling requirements are, but then also how can you install the most efficient system as opposed to what might be considered status quo to be able to first initially reduce what the electricity needs of data centers are. With some of the demand growth that I highlighted, so 65% by 2050, we find that the grid in Ontario is really quite constrained. So we heard the other panelists speak about location being really important as to where data centers can connect. That's the same in Ontario, and we very much are looking at not just capacity and energy, but also demand flexibility in order to free up capacity on existing infrastructure to enable speed to connect for data centers. Because for the most part, we're getting these inquiries, these requests, and data centers want the capacity now. So our key focus is how do we work with data centers to enable them to be a part of the solution and a part of being able to connect them quicker.
And Tam, in Ontario, you've got, if I understand correctly, from a policy perspective right now, you've got a situation where large loads are not automatically served, right? They have to request service. So is there conversation there about criteria around energy efficiency, for example, or flexibility or grid benefits when looking at the data centers that are interested in being served?
So I would say that not from a policy perspective, so there's an opportunity there, certainly, but it's definitely a point of conversation that the IESO brings to the table. So I think that's the uniqueness of the accountabilities of the IESO, is not only being that system operator, so not only being the point where the data centers have to come to us and we do the assessment to see if they can reliably connect to our grid, but because we also administer the programs, we make sure that that's also a part of the conversation to say, you've come to us identifying this specific need, this capacity that you need, asking the data centers around what energy efficiency measures are you looking to implement, and quite frankly, being really open with, from a grid perspective, what capacity we do have available, and to the extent that they can accept lower capacity, that may impact their ability or the speed in which they can connect to our grid.
And so both the lower capacity, but then also the flexibility of their use.
Well, and the flexibility can actually be part of that solution on the lower capacity piece, yes.
Yep. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Carlos, I want to turn back to you here. In Sweden, beyond, we talked about the heating side, but beyond that, on the energy efficiency side, what else is Sweden doing there?
Well, our main point here was to speak about the international collaboration of the work that we are doing in a platform within the framework of the international cooperation for that is offered by the IEA, and it's called the EDNA platform. And we worked then in four areas. I think that there are some slides coming. 4 areas. One of them is 2 indicators. On indicators, the main metrics, because they are the basis for the policy when designing policies, and also in choice of policies. So we do studies that we commissioned a study that looked at all the instruments. Then we work also with the understanding demand. So what we did is that we developed our own model for simulating scenarios and also policies, and that's it's called the Total Energy Modeling. It's available on the website of the EDNA. We also work on efficiency opportunities, and then in efficiency opportunities, that's mostly we did some work on servers. And we just launched a report on liquid cooling. And liquid cooling, then we saw that we can save up to 21% for the whole data center, sometimes less when it's a minor data center, and it's not possible to apply that to every data center. And then also at system level, also we are about to launch a report on having requirements on the ability to set requirements on providing flexibility, and that's going to be presented in 2 weeks with the IEA. What we would like to say is that since everything is moving so fast, we think that international collaboration is very important, and we are already 12 governments, and also the European Commission, representing the European Union, is involved in this work, and we would like to welcome also other countries to join the EDNA platform, because we think that it's a way of getting the reliable information that you need in order to formulate and implement policies. So I see that there are some of the governments that do not participate here.
And just to be clear, this is not European exclusively.
This is international cooperation. Yep. So it's the IEA, so there are it's 12 governments. It's about maybe 6 that are from the European Union, Sweden, France, and a couple.
You don't have to memorize them all.
And one thing that we just did, based on this total energy model, is that we have a dashboard now, where we can not only make projections for example, electricity consumption from data centers in 2040, but also to simulate the impact of policy measures. And it's very easy in that dashboard. You can just choose the level of the efficiency requirement, or also a label. So we can do it for performance requirements, you can do it for labels, for cloud policies, for influencing the utilization rate, also the influence of the lifetime, and we can also extend the lifetime of servers, and then we get the impact of those immediately in an interactive way. So we can call it as a kind of a policy exploration that we can do with this. And we think that this is something that can be used when designing policies in order to have the cost-benefit analysis before taking having a projection.
And just to be clear, this is available not just to the 12 members?
Yes, this is available. This is
Everyone
so
here can...
you can watch on the EDNA YouTube channel already today how this works, and it's available. This dashboard is available, and there is a new version that is going to be launched, and that one will have more than energy efficiency, also the ability for flexibility, for providing flexibility, and also water usage.
Wonderful, thank you. Lisa, I'm going to come back to you on this because Carlos just raised the policy issue, right? Okay, so we've got a model. The model will give us an indication, at least, of what policies can deliver. From your perspective of Danfoss, what policies do you feel are really critical to advance?
I think there's quite a few. I would say the first one is making sure that you've got standardized reporting for water usage, power usage effectiveness, and energy reuse factor. And you heard from the deputy director that that's happening in Europe. But then you need the standardized or the sustainability rating, labeling, and the minimum performance standards. I think that's really the most critical thing, because that can help drive the investment decisions and permitting decisions and financing. Water use, water responsible cooling is also critical, especially in water resource constrained areas. If you use a technology, if you prioritize something like the closed loop systems, you can use water much more efficiently. But I would say probably the most important thing is incentivizing the heat reuse. You're making sure that from the start, during the permitting process, you're making the decisions to locate a data center near a facility that can take that heat and use it in a very responsible and effective way. And then, as Tam mentioned, I think the flexibility is important, incentivizing the flexibility and making sure the electricity market rules allow for data centers to participate in flexibility. I think those are probably the most critical ones that I can recommend.
Yeah, the heat recovery one is particularly tricky, right? Because, of course, data centers, we're not going to tell them exactly where to locate.
Yeah.
We might be able to incentivize location, but nonetheless, I mean, there are limitations to that. And as I think Axel said before, I mean, there's not heat off-takers
Right.
just everywhere. So planning this out at a moment when everything feels like a race,
Yes.
right, is certainly quite the challenge. Are you seeing policies that can enable and incentivize that planning?
In the U.S., I think certain states are starting to look at providing what we're calling like more of a blueprint. You know, how can the head of economic development in certain areas where they're considering a lot of data center investments, how can they try to provide for considering whether it's the existing data center or future data centers? Can they locate them closer to buildings or industrial processes? But I think we have a lot of work to do there.
Yeah. So that's on the heat side. And I do want to come back to the grid integration flexibility side. Tam, can you just talk to us a little bit more about what, for a data center that wants to locate in Ontario today, right? How are they being incentivized to offer that flexibility beyond the capacity limits? Is there more?
So I'd say that there's a couple things the ISO is working on with regards to realizing the value of demand flexibility, and it's not specific to data centers, so I will just note that. So as I mentioned, we operate a wholesale electricity market, so really looking at the demand side as a flexible resource that can actually operate in the wholesale electricity market in Ontario. It is a 5-minute dispatch that's in our electricity market, so understanding what demand side resources can do that, and quite frankly, what ones can't. But to the extent that those demand side resources can't be 5-minute dispatchable, also exploring opportunities for them to still be market responsive while not having to have that 5-minute flexibility, and then that kind of less granular flexibility. There is still a value to the grid. So we're exploring that from both a programmatic perspective, and that's where some of the work that my team is doing, while also working with our market development team to say, how do we really bring those two concepts together so that as a system operator, we can get the most cost-effective solutions for the grid and Ontarians overall on that more frequent basis?
Fantastic. We're nearing the end here, so I'm gonna do a quick round here. Final thoughts. If you're speaking out to the audience, folks in other regions, other countries who are facing obviously the same challenge, what is your number one advice? What is the number one thing that is top of your list to do? And Axel, perhaps I can start with you.
Yeah, I think what we've covered, I think it's important really to look around. I think this is a new area of regulation. As you heard, there's a Chinese regulation which sounds interesting. There's a European regulation coming up. I think Germany is one of the first countries in Europe, at least, who have like real standards. And it's very good to meet, to learn from each other, to talk to each other, and to learn from the experiences, and then act somehow, because as we heard the numbers, data centers and the world is moving fast.
Lisa.
I think it really comes down to collaboration. And there's a lot of people that have stake in this. And I think we all really want to make sure that we're building data centers in a way that protects our energy systems, particularly water resources, but also helps to ensure that the public and residents feel comfortable, because there is a lot of reluctance to having data centers built. So I think everybody really needs to make sure that we're educating everyone in every step of this process to make sure that we're reaching the goals that we have for ensuring resiliency and flexibility.
Thank you, Tam.
I'm going to double down on that collaboration, but also add another perspective around bring data centers into the solutioning. So as a system operator, what I say is that we're experts in the electricity grid and we're experts in the electricity market. We are not experts in what data center needs are. And what we found in our experiences is that bringing them into the solutions, or other sectors into the solution, is there are some brilliant minds out there, and the innovation that you can spur in putting forward a problem statement and having them involved in finding that solution will get the buy-in, not just from a grid perspective, but also from the data center side too.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got regulation, collaboration. Carlos.
Well, I think that the first thing is to go through the list of measures and see if some of them will be crucial. I think that we will have to follow what the EU is going to do. So it's reporting, label, and then performance standards. But also the label for the EU also looks at the classes for water are different if depending on the availability of water where the data center is located. That's a good example of how to study what is most appropriate for your country or a given region. Then choose what is most appropriate, and then look at the system efficiency, of course, demand side flexibility, but in the case of Sweden and other countries that have actually the possibility to use the heat, is to stimulate that actors come together and choose locations where you can make the best out of all the energy and the electricity and the heat that is going to put on the data center.
I was wondering how you were going to get out of the kind of binary, regulatory versus collaborative approach, and I think you did it perfectly with flexible regulation, is what I'm hearing. Look, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank the panelists here for this initial conversation, really focused on the solution side, what we need to be doing on the policy side as well. We're going to enter into a second panel now around what we need to measure to be able to get to these solutions. But thank you so much. I don't know, are we doing a quick, okay, we're doing a very quick photo. Then I'm going to ask my second panel to come join me now. And our second panel, we have Renato Santos, who's here from Brazil. We have Naoko Doi, who's here from Japan. Nancy Seidman, here from the United States. And Jim Matthews, equally from the US. Please join me here. Great to see you again. All right. Thank you. Jim. Anywhere. There's no order. We're the last panel on the last day, and so we can be a little bit flexible about orders. All right. Let me not repeat what I did on the last panel and make a point of introducing my panelists briefly here. So all the way on my left, on your right, Renato Santos. Renato is the manager for power and renewables at the Brazilian Development Bank, and he is fortunate enough to live in what I say Rio, and what he corrected me is Rio. Rio de Janeiro. De Janeiro, of course. All right, Naoko Doi. Naoko is the Senior Research Director at the Institute of Energy Economics in Japan. Nancy, I'm switching orders here. Nancy, to my immediate left, Nancy Seidman. Seidman, my apologies, is Senior Advisor at RAP, which is the Regulatory Assistance Project in the United States. And Jim Matthews, just next to Nancy, is the president of the International Electrotechnical Commission. So thank you so much for joining me. This second conversation is really about the fundamental question, or the fundamental problem, I'll say, that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And so we need to figure out how we measure this. We started getting into it a little bit on the previous panel when talking about what the European Commission is trying to do, and certainly my understanding from that is that they are on the verge of figuring out what some of those very specific metrics and requirements will be, but that is a little bit to come. So maybe we can start, Renato, can you just get us started here? Tell us a little bit about the situation in Brazil in terms of what you're measuring, what types of metrics you've got going there.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Thank you for moderating this panel, and thank you for the organization, IEA, the Canada government. Thank you for the audience, to its endurance. Thank you for being here. So, in Brazil, we have a particular situation that we have abundant renewable energy, actually excess of renewable energy. So, mainly because of our hydroelectric based matrix. Historically, it's been this way. But recently we have a huge deployment of solar and wind, particularly in the northeast region of the country. And the transmission didn't move it so fast, so we have restrictions, connection restrictions, and there are projects that are being heavily curtailed right now. So right now there's a huge opportunity to take advantage of this excess renewable energy. And I came from the power sector, so this is what I can talk better about. And there are some policies that try to manage, to channel this pipeline of projects, data centers especially, but also some projects on hydrogen and other heavy load projects in industry. And recently the government came up with a proposition of an access window where the operator and the energy research planning agency, which planning and oversees all the available capacity of the connection capacity that we have. So they are organizing some kind of auctions, regular auctions, to make a competitive grid connection. So in this process, there will be several aspects that will be analyzed, and if the capacity demanded exceeds what's available, it will be a competitive process. So it's trying. What's happening right now? It's the coordination of several aspects of the data center sector. It's not only about energy or about digital infrastructure. It's about water, land use, industrial policy, which is very important for my work, especially at the Brazilian Development Bank. So coordination is what I think it's the main topic here. We have to coordinate all these aspects of this particular application. And another example is a recently movement from the government of Brazil that created a decree, a provisional decree that links the financial incentives like taxes to standards and sustainability on water use, on research and development and industrial policy. Unfortunately, this decree couldn't be voted by the Congress on time, and it's on hold right now, but eventually it will get back. And on the financial side, BNDES, which I represent, the Brazilian Development Bank, when we analyze a data center project or a heavy load project, we usually look at this power use, the water use, the carbon emission. We have a specialized team that goes deep in the projects to compare and use the international standards to analyze that. So I think it's a broad mix of indicators and aspects that we have to look, but in a coordinated way.
Indicators and incentives. I'm going to come back to the auction just afterwards, but first let me go over to Naoko. Naoko, Japan has I believe, quite a long-standing reporting, benchmarking policy. Maybe you can walk us through the policy itself and then how it's being applied to data centers.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just prepared one slide, so if you could kindly show my slide.
Can we get Naoko's slide up, please?
Please.
All right, we're hoping that slide's going to come. You know what? Here's what we're going to do.
Here it is. Thank you very
We
much.
got it. All right,
So
fantastic.
this is Japan's regulatory measures for data center in terms of energy efficiency. I divide this one into two. One is existing measure and the new and the additional measures. I mean, the top part is existing measure under the act on the rationalizing energy use and shifting to non-fossil energy. The important point is the energy sort of intensity improvement target and the reporting and the benchmark system. I mean, this one, in fact, applicable to not only data center, but also industry, transport, and the commercial sector, of which annual energy consumption is above 1,500 kiloliter. But point is, those entities would have to, meet the aspirational goal of 1% energy intensity improvement annually. And the second is they are required to submit their energy consumption, midterm, long-term sort of plan for energy efficiency improvement. Third one, benchmark system is applicable to the data center, of which PUE is targeted to be below 1.4 by 2030. I mean, this is the existing one, but due to the rising electricity demand in the data center, I mean, more stringent approach is become effective from the April this year. For instance, on the top part of the second half of this box is the new data center to be established after 2029, meaning after the 2 year of operation, their PUE would have to be 1.3 or below. The second one, those established after 2025, they have to set a target or goal of PUE and then submit the government, and then also partial disclosure of information from the annual report, such as DC name or operational PUE. So, this is only a kind of a short summary of the regulatory approach to Japan's data center energy efficiency improvement, but gradual step-by-step approach is undertaken to strengthen the performance in terms of energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have to say, having listened to Mr. Wong earlier, who was talking about China's PUE, and they're now at 1.33, and you've brought your target down from 1.4 to 1.3. It almost sounds like there's a little healthy competition going on there.
Yeah, try not to compete. I understand that China has a special sort of area where they have innovative, data center cluster, where I think their target is much higher, 1.2 or something like that. So, it's a certainly healthy competition. Yeah.
That's wonderful. All right, we love healthy competitions, getting us faster and closer to ultimate goals. Let me look over to Jim here. I know I'm switching out the orders a little bit, and just before I do, let me just say one of the things. So we've been very much focused on PUE, right? And we just heard about PUE in Japan, PUE in China, and of course PUE manages certain things. It manages ultimately the amount of power that we are not using for data, for compute, but it doesn't measure everything. And Jim, I think you've been working on perhaps a broader approach, and I'm hoping you can talk to us about that.
Sure, thanks, Philip. And I will maybe dial the lens back a little bit and look at the bigger picture, because I think first you have to think about the data centers themselves no longer as a net taker, but maybe they are also is a cost and benefit side of the equation. So a standalone building is there, it's put in the middle of somewhere, it generates a lot of heat, uses a lot of water, it takes up a lot of electricity, other people are suffering. But if you think about what could be happening, our previous panel talked about all the applications and ways to use the heat and the things that are there, but it really needs to be seen as more of a part of an overall sophisticated energy coordinated grid. And in doing that, when you pair it with energy efficient technology and international standards, you can shift and become contributors to the grid capacity. There are ways to use the load, there are ways to manage the grid itself, and it's really a heightened importance for emerging markets and for developing economies. Now, they don't need to be seen as negative. They could actually assist and speed up the energy transition. They could contribute to the electricity grids and decarbonization and benefit local communities if you are able to use the energy and the heat generated. It requires a lot of carefully designed and proactive participation from the designers, vendors, and operators, but we think the IEC can help facilitate that. We also think about sustainability, and sustainability should really be measured by the total concentration, not just lower consumption, emissions, or efficiency, because the next generation of data centers should be designed, assessed, and governed by what they give back as well as what they take. Strengthening those, enabling decarbonization, supporting environmental stewardship, and building public confidence is an important part of that process. The delivering on that means really bringing all the players across the entire ecosystem to talk about this, because operators, technology providers, utilities, standards bodies, policymakers, regulators, investors, and communities have to all be a part of this because they're all impacted and they all benefit. So if you think about it, I think for the IEC, this for us is a strategic opportunity to help build trusted approaches that make data centers part of the reliable and larger energy picture, and environmental and digital systems as well. that includes strengthening the standard framework. We're even doing work, as mentioned by Dr. Wang, in DC-powered centers. Because, you know, the centers that get built today are not the same centers that were built 6 months ago or a year ago. And innovations are happening with power and cooling. Innovations are happening with structure, design, and architecture. We're seeing more shift from copper transmission of data to optical transmission of data. We'll probably see a further evolution of optical chips, things that take some of the heat generating capacity out of the process. But we also have to build a trusted approach to make data centers reliable parts. And that means strengthening the framework and conformity assessment capacities that we offer and others offer to support the confidence of the market. So we're doing this by doing a group that is one of our sub-boards that is a CTO level organization. It involves people from energy companies, from IT, it involves people from appliances and people from multiple sectors of technologies. And what they're working on at the moment is trying to frame the sustainability problem, offering recommendations that in a white paper will come to standards bodies, regulators, governments, and industry that can be acted on now. That paper will be out later this year. And next, we're going to try to apply some fast-track processes to really take reusing existing standards and close the gaps that are out there and create new standards for emerging technologies. Because this is such a dynamic space, new things are happening, new innovations are coming, and we want to make sure that we don't take a long road to get to the point where we can have standards which are usable and serve as a hub for partners across the effort. So that's the hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that, as I understand it, is known as the total contribution metric,
right,
which is what you're developing. I would encourage everyone to follow that one very closely. Let me turn it over to you, Nancy. Nancy, you're in the U.S. We all know the backlashes that have been happening over the past year and just growing over the past year. Opposition to data centers for all sorts of reasons, community reasons in particular. Talk to us about what you think we need to do to get these data centers to be accepted and acceptable to the public.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you to IEA for this panel and inviting me to participate. For those who don't know, the Regulatory Assistance Project, we're an independent global NGO advancing policy, innovation, and thought leadership in the energy community. And my background is in environmental regulation for many years. So at RAP, as Philippe mentioned, you know, we're hearing a lot from energy regulators about challenges with getting the sufficient information to make an informed decision about large loads or data centers. So focusing here on our, you know, ideas for metrics and transparency is really critical. So as I see it, some of the lack of transparency and issues with the public stems from jurisdictional limits that mean in the US, the public utility commissions, you know, the energy regulators, frequently can't require data centers to provide information on the potential environmental impacts, for example. But we have at the same time in those same jurisdictions air and water regulators and noise regulators who have that authority, and so they need to be partners helping the public utility commissioners with the information gathering, public outreach, metrics, and transparencies to avoid some of that backlash that you mentioned. But we need to recognize that each agency has a different mandate, jurisdiction, and a mission, so meaning that if they're working together, these agencies can help achieve the goals. The collaboration mentioned earlier, you know, really spoke to me. Because this lack of transparency and coordination means that the environmental agencies are frequently the last to know about a project, which gives them very little leverage in the permitting process. So concerned citizens, angry about the data centers, end up venting at the public utility commissions about the environmental impacts, and the commissions aren't able to respond. But as we've been learning over the last couple of days, demand flexibility can help with all these issues and can help us address questions that the public has and deal with developers and the public's frustration, frankly, with the process. And obviously demand flexibility can help address environmental concerns. So I came up with a couple of ideas for metrics and mechanisms. First, obviously, avoiding peak periods, shifting loads maybe to other data centers, who aren't at peak times, delaying the non-urgent work, using demand flexibility. Other panels here have spent a lot of time talking about that. There's huge potential there. But there's also demand flexibility can help with grid congestion, transmission and distribution congestion, and as well as addressing resource adequacy. And obviously you can meet peak needs with solar and storage combined, which would be helpful. And we've seen in the US, for example, data centers providing for additional energy efficiency in nearby communities, not directly at their data centers, which obviously they could be doing as well. And obviously, as I mentioned, demand flexibility and distributed resources have huge potential. So to think about metrics, we could be thinking about, are we tracking the amount and duration of load shifts at peak times? Are we tracking how much energy is offset from solar and storage? Can we look at the types and how demand flexibility, whether that's temporal or geographic, how could that information be used as a metric? If they're paying for essentially energy efficiency off-site, how much energy has that offset? So those were a couple of the things that I thought of to
So clearly far beyond the PUE, right?
Yeah.
Really broadening things here, and Jim, I'm going to
It's like Jim was saying, yeah.
that your total contributions metric is trying to capture much or all of the items that Nancy was just walking through. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So let me just go right back to Brazil in that case, and not so much to not to harbor on the development of metrics, but you mentioned earlier the auction process, right? And as I understand it, that's part of the new regulatory framework for connection, right?
Yes.
So when you're doing the auction, is this an auction where it's the highest bidder who's winning the auction, or is this a multi-criteria thing that pulls in some of these factors that we're talking about here?
Yeah, it's a multi-criteria. It's based on where there's connection and power available. So the system operator and regulators, they disclose this information before. So it's a transparency. Developers and the community can know about it, study, and be heard in this process. So it's to streamline and to make an efficient use of the power grid, so that you put the new projects where there is power available, and then don't stress, don't bring problems to the grid or future expansion to the grid, more cost to the consumers, and it tries to balance the best use of this infrastructure with the benefits of the projects. Of course, there is a licensing process, an environmental licensing. Even before the project starts, it's a previous licensing that will analyze several of the aspects that were mentioned here. And there are other steps of this licensing project until construction and operation.
So reinforcing that ultimately we're talking here about really a multi-criteria thing, and whether in Brazil you're taking it through an auction process or globally we're looking at developing a total contribution metric that can be used in regulations, we understand that we need to move beyond, PUE is critical, it's core, right? But we also know that we need to move beyond that. I'm curious, I have one last question here before I have to close this up for Naoko. Naoko, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm curious. In Japan, the focus right now is PUE. What is the thinking about broadening that?
Well, I mean, it's a very important question. Currently, as I mentioned to you, aside from PUE data center, also other industry, transport, and then a commercial building, they would have to comply with a 1% annual energy intensity improvement target. I mean, this one, in fact, facilitates the creative sort of implementation of energy efficiency measures, as long as it's 1%. So, for instance, data centers, perhaps they can utilize waste heat, and then that can be counted as part of achieving the 1% energy intensity target. So, this is one. But as a previous section and the panel talked about the importance of liquid cooling, and then perhaps the metric of the PUE would have to be adjusted because perhaps the liquid cooling would become a norm. Then perhaps this is a totally different paradigm. So that would be the timing for us to reconsider the metrics. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Look, we are out of time here. I do want to just emphasize. I find this fascinating because, you know, when we started looking into data center efficiency issues and energy nexus issues, you know, everything seemed focused on PUE, and I'm just so heartened to see the conversation expanding now outward everywhere here, whether it's Brazil, Japan, the United States, and globally. Clearly, this conversation is live. It is, as Jim said, extremely dynamic, and we have to be dynamic with it as the technology and the challenges continue to evolve. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this panel and sharing both your thoughts and the status of things in your countries and organizations. Thank you very much. We're going to do a very quick photo, I believe, and then I will ask Brian Motherway to come up and close us out. So,
thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I'm going to put myself in the middle here this time. Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Brian, would you like to come close us out here? I think we're all going to.
Thanks, Philippe. Thank you, all the panelists, and thank you, everybody, for being with us. This is the end of this session. I think it's been an excellent session. I'm glad we featured data centers, and I'm glad we had so many experts. And Philippe, thank you for your excellent moderation. I know you've been talking about opportunities for data centers to be more efficient, more flexible, and your conversation just there about metrics and the importance of that. So I'm very pleased we featured this topic this year, and I know it's of interest to many of you. I'm delighted we did this event with the Energy Efficiency Hub. We're very close friends. We work literally together in Paris, and Jonathan and your team, you did excellent work in organizing this event, so thank you to everybody who participated. And this is, in fact, the end of the 11th Annual Conference on Energy Efficiency organized by the IEA, the first time in the Americas here in Montreal. We've had an excellent, warm welcome. I'm very pleased that so many people have been willing to participate and talk to us over the last couple of days. We've had really many interesting conversations on stage and off stage and in various rooms. So I want to thank you all for being with us. You are all hereby formally invited to the 12th annual conference next year, location to be revealed soon. But we're delighted you all came and spent time with us and shared your expertise with us. And I want to thank you all very, very much. Thank you.